Hey guys, thanks for coming back and watching another video. Today I've got something really exciting and one of those things that I absolutely love doing, gardening in the smallest space possible. This can be done on a balcony, a back porch. It can be mobile, moved in and out of a garage. So it's really the perfect thing for limited space, or if you just want to try something new and grow vertically. So watch along, follow along, and this will teach you exactly how to make one of these, and it works great. Today we are going to build a hydroponic tower for our cool season vegetables, or more specifically the lettuces, the types of lettuces I have. I want to make sure that they grow quite well in the greenhouse. Now you could do this in a garage or actually inside your finished area of your home if it has enough light. So that's a key. You have to have a lot of light for this. But this is technically not hydroponic, it's aeroponic. There's a little slight difference in definitions, but for the purposes of the video, I'm just going to refer to it as hydroponic. Now, to make the entire system work, you are going to need some buckets, and there's some debate over what is food grade and what is not food grade. So I'm going to bring you in closer and show you a typical hardware store bucket, and this bucket that is actually labeled food grade. But I want to show you something interesting on the bottom of the bucket. Okay, the first bucket I'm talking about here is the one that is specifically labeled food grade bucket. Okay, you're going to see the number 2 and a recycling symbol and HDPE. Okay, now I'm going to pick up our hardware store bucket, and I'm going to try to, now this is from Lowe's Hardware. Let's see if I can get this focused. You'll also see the number 2 in HDPE, but there's no recycling symbol around that triangle. So what is the difference? I'm not sure. So that is what I've been studying about. What is the difference between food grade bucket and non-food grade bucket? So if somebody out there knows, because I've did a lot of reading, I've watched a lot of videos, and there's a lot of contradicting information. So if you know specifically, and you can take me to a website that shows me exactly what the difference is and why the Lowe's bucket would not be safe to use, please direct me there. I know you will leave a comment, and that's great, but I just would like to be able to read it on something like an official website. Okay, so after our quick debate about buckets, and I'm sure that will go on forever, but anyways, what I want to talk about next is what type of pump are you going to need for this entire operation. The type of pump you select is going to be very important. Now, this is a fountain pump. I'm replacing a bamboo fountain. You may have seen it in previous videos. If not, I'll try to link it somewhere where you can take a better look at it. But this pump is only rated to push water up about 3 feet. 2 to 3 feet is what it says on the packaging. So that would not work for this unless you're just going to use one bucket tall, and it's not going to be enough pressure. This one will go anywhere from 6 to 8 feet lift, and that's what we need. And I've already tested. I'm going to take you outside and show you how much water pressure it has in a 5-gallon bucket when we plug it in, and you can see how much pressure is inside of the hose. And of course, this is going to be capped, and there's going to be not microscopic, but small holes drilled in the PVC. But anyways, let's go outside and take a look. Okay, guys, hope you can see this clearly. Now, if not, I'll have to reshoot it. But anyways, we have our bucket, 5-gallon bucket filled with water. We've got our pump in the bucket. We've got about it's not quite 6 foot, but it's close to 6 foot PVC pipe, and it's 1/2 inch. I'm going to plug this in and show you how much water pressure is. So that particular pump is a really nice pump. It's not expensive, and I'll link it in the description below so you can take a look at it for yourself. But I went to my local hardware store, the big box store, and I just didn't find the pump I really needed. And that one seems to be exactly what I want. The price was right, and the lift on it was great. You can see that something like this that did come from the big box store will not work. It just will not work because you need good water pressure. Now, of course, that's going to be capped, and there's going to be small holes drilled into it, so it will spray each plant as it goes up the pipe. So just remember, the key component of all the system is a good quality pump. Now, the first step we're going to do is going to be drilling out the top of the bucket, of the 5-gallon bucket. We want there to be a hole. I don't have the hole saw that's exactly the right size, but it's so close to 1/2 inch. I think it's going to be a tight fit. But you want the water to drain through each of the other buckets out around the edges, so it's adding extra water to the plants. It's okay because you're going to be spraying it out if that's not the case. But anyways, let's drill our first hole. Okay, guys, so on the top of each one of our 2-gallon buckets, we're going to drill a hole in the top and the bottom for the 1/2 inch PVC. We want to run it from our reservoir bucket all the way to the top. And this drill bit, the original drill bit, was 1/2 inch, but I feel like I want a tighter fit because I want the water to drain out over some holes I'm going to drill around the edges, which will put more water closer to each plant. So let's do that. I'm going to re-drill this one and see if we can get a little bit better with the paddle bit. Now this bit actually said 3/4, but it's drilling a perfectly round 1/2 inch hole. I'm just going to force it in a little bit. I may have to do a little bit more creative drilling here. All right, we don't want it to be bigger than our 1/2 inch pipe, so we're just going to try to force it in there. Now there's a very tight fit. As you can see, there's a very tight fit. So when the water comes draining back down through, it's going to be less likely to go around our 1/2 inch pipe and more out around the edges. And that's what we wanted to do, to provide more water to our plants that are closer to the edges of each pipe. Now, before we drill into this bucket, there's something we're going to need. Either you need a hair dryer, or in my case, I have a heat gun out here in the shop. So this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to soften up the plastic just a little bit. These plastics can be brittle. So if you're drilling it through with a drill bit, a paddle bit like this, it's more likely to crack or fracture. So what I'll say is, if you're using a paddle bit, heat the plastic up and then do the drilling. Very easy. It's less likely to happen on a fine-tooth saw, hole saw. So that's what I'm going to tell you. Heat it up first. And so we're going to do this in, I guess I'm going to do time lapse is what I'm trying to say, so we can get through this without being an all-day project. Now, just in case something wasn't clear in that time lapse, what I was doing is heating the tops up, and after I've drilled the initial hole, because it wasn't exactly a perfectly clean circle. So what I did is I heated up and then forced the PVC into it, and then now we have a much tighter fit and a cleaner hole. So if when water comes down in here, it's going to drain out around the edges closer to where the plants are. We don't want it draining in the center because there's no plant roots in the center. They're all around the edges. Unless they get huge, the plant roots are going to be out here, and so we want the water going through the holes we're going to drill in just a moment around the edges. Now, just to go over this one more time, and I'm trying not to put too fine of a point on it, but if you're using a paddle bit, you want to do this slow and steady, just that kind of very slowly, because you don't want to just jam it on there in full speed. It's just, especially if this is battery. If you have electric, it's going to be even more torque on it. So remember, once you do that, you're gonna hit it with your heat gun or hair dryer first, soften up the plastic. Then after you drilled it, you're going to do it again, heat it up a second time, and then put your piece of PVC in, and it's going to be a perfectly tight fit. It's not watertight. It can still probably leak, but it's going to be much more likely to send that water out to the outer edges where we want it. Now, this next step is completely optional. It's just these metal handles kind of get in my way. These buckets are not going to be heavy. There's not going to be a lot of weight to them. So I'm going to take a pair of cutters, and I'm just going to snip through the plastic on each side. Very old pair of cutters. They're quite rusty. And just pull it out. Do that on the opposite side as well. And like I say, if you want to keep it on there, if you think you might have another use for these buckets, keep them on there. But for me, they're just kind of in the way. So I'm going to remove that from each one, and then we're going to assemble everything. And then we're going to go over measuring exactly where we want the plant holes at. And we're going to talk about some unusual, maybe more organic ways to hold the plant. Now, this is not a guarantee. It's a loofah sponge. I kind of prefer the pool noodles or the floaties that you see around the pools, and a lot of people are using those, and there's nothing wrong with them. I don't think they're highly toxic. But if you really want to go organic, then you could go with loofah. Another great use of these heat guns is removing stickers and things like that. As you can see, it came off very cleanly. I just hit it with my heat gun, and so no plastic residue or no sticky residue. But anyways, now we're going to decide how many plants, or we're going to put this in a stationary, backing it up to a wall. If you do back it up to a wall, you may only want to put 3 on the front and leave the one on the back out, because it's not going to get any sunlight back here. If you're planning to put it out in an open area that's going to get a lot of sun, then you may want to put 4. Now, for this size bucket, I don't want to do more than 4. So I'm just going to evenly space 4 holes all the way around each bucket. And that way we're not overcrowding, and there's plenty of room for the roots to grow in each bucket. And we're 5 buckets tall. So we're talking about 20 plants growing in this one system. and I'm going to show you a way you can add more systems onto it that will just multiply. With the amount of water pressure we have, it shouldn't be a problem. Okay, we're going to take a ruler, and I really need a tailor's measure. It'd be a little bit easier, but I guess we can try it with this. But we're just going to measure the entire circumference of the bucket. And it looks like it's about 28.5. So we're going to divide that up into 4 equal parts, and we're going to drill our holes, and we'll have, since this is going to be in full sunlight, we're not going to do an empty one on the back. We're not going to just have 3 on the front and nothing on the back. So we're going to do 4 all the way around. You could, if you're growing something smaller, you might be able to get away with 6, but I would probably go up to a different size bucket, maybe 5 gallons. And they do make a 7-gallon bucket, but I priced those, and the price goes way up once you start talking about a 7-gallon bucket. Okay, so we've measured our bucket, and we know that it's about every 7 inches we're going to want another planting hole. So we're going to heat the bucket up just slightly, come in with our hole saw. Let's get some coleslaw. Come in with our hole saw and put in 4 equally spaced holes, and I'm going to do that in time lapse so you don't have to watch me do something so boring. Okay, so what we have is a completed plant bucket as far as one layer. We've got our hole in the bottom where our PVC, half-inch PVC is going to come through. We've got our holes in the sides where we're going to put each plant. We've got our top drilled out. We're going to do that as what we've already done that as well, but we're going to assemble this all together, and we're going to do this 5 levels high. We're going to put it all together, and it's really super simple. If I had to estimate the time it would take this, I would say 30 to 45 minutes total if you know what you're doing. You can put together something like a desk from the office supply store. You can do this no problem. Now, actually, I spoke a little too soon because we have not drilled the holes in the side holes that are going to drain directly over the plant's roots. We want to do that in 4 different places directly above where we know the holes are going to be. So we're going to drill 4 holes, probably about 1/4 of an inch. It should drain with no problem. If I find there's a problem, I can always go back if the pump's going too fast, because this is a new type of pump I just purchased. I've purchased other types of pumps in the past, but this one may put out more than I'm anticipating. If it does, we can drill extra holes to help with drainage. Okay, with a never used 3/8 drill bit, we're going to go over each hole. We're going to have our plant, and we're going to carefully drill a hole directly above it, closer to the outer edge. We're just going to try to make sure we get it dead center of where our plant roots are going to be. So we have 4 drilled holes, and I'm kind of iffy on whether or not this is going to be enough drainage, but if not, we can go back and add some extras. Now, I discovered there was 1 bucket that I had not drilled out, so I'm not going to do this in fast forward. I'm going to do this in very slow speed. You're going to take this bit, if you're using a paddle bit, and you're just going to carefully go through it without trying to damage it at too high rate of an RPM or torque. Again, you're going to do the heat. You're going to find your piece of PVC, just your short piece that you're using as a kind of a measuring stick, so you'll have exactly the right hole. All right, so there we are. We have it ready to go. Now we have our 5th bucket in place, and now we're going to assemble it all together after we drill out the side holes on every other bucket. Okay, with the top of one of the buckets, we're going to mark exactly where the holes need to be on top of each other, because we want the drainage to happen very smoothly. So I'm going to mark that on each one, so I'll know exactly where I need to put the holes on the side, and also know exactly where the drain holes need to be. Okay guys, so this is our 5-tier bucket setup. If you'll notice, I've drilled the plant holes, I've offset them, so if the plants are growing down, they're not going to cover up another plant, so there's room for the plants to grow as we go up. Also, in the side of your reservoir bucket, I put in a refill tube, and I can just cap it with a piece of PVC whenever I need to come in and add water. We don't have to worry about mosquitoes getting in there with that cap on there. Also, this 5-gallon main reservoir bucket I haven't mentioned came from Firehouse Subs, and they sell them for $3 each, so it's really a bargain. These can be had for free at bakeries and places like that, so you can literally get these buckets at no charge if you just go in and ask the manager do they have any extra buckets? And they might be throwing them in the trash. You never know. So you have your main 5-gallon bucket. There's a center half-inch piece of PVC. We still have to drill the holes directly or slightly directly across and up so that the water comes out of our main central tube and sprays directly on the root system. So we're going to put 20 holes in that main central half-inch piece of PVC tube, and we will be almost ready for our plants. Now guys, what I was talking about, I want to show you a little bit closer up what I'm doing here. Now this is where our plant's going to go, and our main central watering tube goes up through the middle. When we drill that really small hole, I mean, it's going to be probably like 1 millimeter or less. It's going to spray straight out sideways, but gravity is going to pull that stream down. So we don't want to put the stream directly across. We want to put it up because there's going to be a certain amount of loss in the stream coming out. So it's not going to be super high pressure. So we want to put it towards the top of this hole to make sure that our root ball gets, or our root system gets, some water. So if you can see, it's towards the top of our drilled hole. We can also go over this with a little bit of sandpaper and clean it up. And so that is what I mean when I say I'm drilling the hole on the interior a little bit higher. I'll have to disassemble one bucket at a time and then go in and drill each hole down and then put the buckets back on. I'll probably even number the buckets so I don't get them confused when I put them back up. Number the lowest bucket is 1 and the top bucket is 5. Now the only area where we're going to have a chance of pressure being an issue is here, and so I'm going to PVC glue this onto the top to make sure it doesn't pop off. If I do decide to come back in later, I can cut it off here and add a coupling and add 1 or 2 more buckets. I don't know if I'll do that. I'm going to wait and see how this works with 20 plants. I've done this before and it always seems to do great. But this year I'm going to bring it into the greenhouse and do a wintertime growing session and see how that works. So there we go. We have it sealed. Now I'm going to seal each one of these with clear packing tape, and we can get an up close and show you how each one of those small, tiny little drill holes is going to spray water directly onto the root system. Okay guys, I'm going to give you a demonstration of it in work. I put some clear packing tape over every single hole. Before we go to the final step, I got a flashlight over the top. I'm going to bring the camera in closer so you can actually see the water spraying on the inside. It's a little bit noisy, so I'm going to cut the volume way down, but you should be able to see it working very clearly through the camera. Hey guys, I wanted to step out of the greenhouse as the audio quality is not too good inside because I've got that running and I also have a fan running. But what I want to say is the hole you're looking through is at the very top of the 5-foot bucket, the fifth bucket on top. So you can see even at that height, it's quite a bit of water running through. Now, I made a few modifications and I'm going to go over those each one at a time once I cut the system off. But what I wanted to show you is even at the very top level, you can see the amount of water. Now I have the pipe twisted a little bit so obviously it won't spray out of the hole we have drilled. We're going to put the pool noodles in, we're going to set everything up, and we'll start our plants in there as well. But I just wanted to show you, even at that level, it's really working great. The pump is quite a bit stronger than my last pump, and that's why I have drilled quite a few holes extra in the PVC pipe, the 1/2-inch PVC pipe, because it's putting out so much force. So this pump costs less than $20. It was on a discount because it's the end of season. I'll put the link to that as well. But this is a great time to buy garden equipment and supplies because everything is being marked down. It's end of season, so you can really get some bargains. I would encourage you to go on and look through all my list of products because you can see discounts everywhere, 25, 50% off. So guys, as I said earlier, this pump is quite a bit better than my last pump. This pump has a much higher lift on it than the previous pump. And so what I did is I went back and I drilled holes around the top of each bucket because it is putting out so much more water, and I think it's going to work even better. But I did this on every level to make sure we don't have any spillover and we don't lose any water, because losing water in a system like this, in a matter of hours, you would be out of water. So you have to be very careful. That's one thing a lot of people don't talk about, is you have to make sure as you're setting it up, you're not losing even an ounce of water per hour, because in 12 or 24 hours, your water level would be so low you would have no water and your plants would probably be most likely be dehydrating. So anyways, that is the system. I'm going to go over one or two more items, and yeah, it's working great. Now another thing I'm going to talk about is this right here. This was originally a fill used for filling the reservoir, and so you would put your funnel right there and you'd fill it with your hydroponic fertilizers, but you don't really need that now that we have all these extra holes drilled because of the strength of the pump. So I'm just going to cover that up, and if we did need to take this off, we have a nice opening right there. We can add whatever, but it's really kind of redundant now that we have all these extra holes all the way around the perimeter, and we can easily add water or nutrients to our reservoir. So guys, the final step will be adding your pool noodles before you bring in your plants. Now you can cut a small wedge into the pool noodle so you can have a tighter fit depending on the root system. You can also use it at full size and put a little wedge in there and still have room for your plant. That's a couple of things you can do. Lastly, if you don't like using the pool noodle because it is made out of plastic and industrial materials, you can use a loofah sponge, completely natural. You can grow it yourself or you can buy it on Amazon. I'll put a link to that. But also you want to put it at an angle so the water will run back into the reservoir or each bucket, because the loofah is quite a bit more porous and much more chance of leakage. And so if you just have a few drops every hour, in a couple of days you will lose all of your water. So again, be really careful with the loofahs and just watch your system and make sure there's no leaks. And the most important thing I can tell you is having it perfectly vertical. You're going to want to use a level. Put something under it like a stepping stone and make sure that stepping stone is stable and perfectly level. Hey guys, so this is our final setup. I put some aluminum wrap here, what you normally would wrap like a hot water heater, and that's going to help keep the water in this bucket cool. It was a dark red, so it may attract a little bit more heat, unlike these white buckets that's going to reflect heat. But anyways, that's the setup. It works great. I've got it unplugged temporarily because we're going to move it out to the garden until it starts to turn a little bit colder. It's going to be way too hot to leave it in the greenhouse. But anyways, if you have any questions, please leave them down below. It's a great little project, maybe with some kids. It would be just an amazing thing to do. So anyways, I hope you guys have a great day, and thanks for watching. I hope you'll like and subscribe if you found something helpful.